Hey Moonies, welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club. I'm your host, Victoria L. Johnson, and I'm here with Mychal Threets, aka Mychal the Librarian. He is one of the coolest librarians on the internet, and we are super excited to have him on the show. So welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club, Mychal.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Can't wait for the conversation.
Yeah, same. So first question I like to ask everyone is, what is your first memory of watching Sailor Moon?
That's such a great question. I think my first memory is just from other friends telling me about Sailor Moon. I think I grew up watching certain shows. Everyone knows that I love watching Arthur Reed, Reading Rainbow, Steve Irwin, those kind of shows. So I had such a little access to a lot of TV shows as a kid, that my friends who love Sailor Moon told me all about Sailor Moon, and I finally started watching it. So I think that's like my first memory of watching Sailor Moon, is watching it on behalf of my friends who are obsessed, who are true fans of Sailor Moon. So I think for me, I'm always like, okay, whenever I watch Sailor Moon, I always think of my friends who
Yeah.
love this show exponentially.
I love that because I feel like so much of Sailor Moon is about the power of friendship. So it's kind of nice that
Hmm.
you like grew a love for it through your power of friendship with your friends. So that's really
Definitely.
um and did you have any favorite characters as you were watching, any favorite Sailor Scouts?
You know what? I mean, I think I love the main character. I've only ever watched it so
Mhm.
many times. I was rewatching it recently in preparation for this conversation.
Thanks.
And I just love how they're like why is the morning so early in the day? And
Mhm.
like that's to me, like that's such a simple line, but like that's so powerful, and that's so like something that we can all relate to. Just like, why is the morning always being so much the morning?
Yeah.
I so much love her energy. Very chaotic. So she's probably my favorite character. It's an amazing actual main character. Just
I
her
love
her quirkiness, and just her unusualness.
I love that. She's my favorite as well. So it's I always make me happy when other people say the same thing.
It's always hard. I mean, I think it's always hard for for all like all the fandoms, all the lores. You're always like, do I pick the main character? So often the main character is not the favorite, but I think that's an unusual series where like the main character is like is the staple.
Yeah, as you mentioned, she's just super relatable. Like I'm like, I also don't love mornings and I love to eat and play video games and read manga. So this is
Yeah,
me.
exactly. Again, at one point she's just, I think at one point I was again we were rewatching, and she just is like,
Mhm.
oh, you know what? I need to take a nap. Thank goodness it's so easy for me to just fall straight to sleep, and she just passes out. Like, I don't truly relate to that, but if I could, I would love to just be like, I'm tired. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna lay down and fall fast asleep. So her energy is unmatched.
completely agree. Oh, but I do also want to talk about you. So, what made you become a librarian?
Oh, you know what made me become a librarian is just a lifelong love of libraries, of library joy, of book joy. I would A lot of people know by now, but not everybody knows. But I was a homeschool kid for most of my life, from the earliest stage you go to school, all the way to senior year of high school. So that meant I spent a lot of times, um, in libraries. So I think just honestly, just having a lifelong love of libraries, appreciation for literacy, is what led to my decision. And I started working in libraries, as an entry level person. So I was a shelver, which is like the lowest position you can have,
Mhm.
at the library, for lack of a better word. They're very important people, very important role that they play, in the
Yeah.
library. But I think just having that role, just honestly talking with people, um, is what made me continue on with my education, with my pursuit of becoming a librarian, and just because of like just seeing people's interests. Like I think that's what a lot of people don't know. Like loving books is such an important part of being a librarian. But there's so much more. There's so many more things that make you qualified to work at the library. Niche interests, like true passion, like being like honestly being passionate about Sailor Moon, would make you people be like, okay, let's hire this person as a library worker. There's so many Sailor Moon fans in our communities, in the world. Like that's going to be a lot of times it's going to be more important for them to be able to talk and relate to Sailor Moon at the front desk than it is for books. I think just discovering that all these different people interact and come into the library at any given moment, any given day, any given week, any given month, being able to talk about what they love to talk about, it's so key. It's so key, and being the best library worker that is possible. And I just love that so much. I think that's what encouraged me to become a librarian.
I love that. And that makes me happy to hear because being a librarian was actually one of my original dream jobs. And so it's still like in
Oh,
the back of my head, or I'm just like,
yeah.
maybe later on I could still
You
go back
never
and get
know.
a master's degree in library sciences. But because I also just love books and I love libraries.
Sure.
Joke and say I have like an infinity stones of library cards because everywhere I move, I always get a library card wherever I go.
Yes, that's perfect.
And so I absolutely love it. So that's good to know that my Sailor Moon fandom could like help me into this pursuit at some point in time, maybe.
Definitely, without a doubt.
Um, so what do you say is the best part about being a librarian?
You know what? I think that the best part about being a librarian is the part that I've had success with on social media is the stories that we encounter each and every day. I always tell people that I'm not necessarily unique when it comes to libraries about the stories that I encounter. I have a very quiet speaking voice, but I have a very loud library voice when it comes to talking about the library. I think that's my favorite part. Is just that they're like we were just talking about. There's so many different people who come into the library, and they all have a story to tell. They all deserve to have their story told, and just simple moments. It's either like the simplest life or the most extraordinary life, and they're all. I love that whenever they come in the library, it's almost like something washes over them when they come through those library doors, and they're just willing to tell their story. They want to talk to you about what they love, about what makes them them. And it's so cool as a library person to be like entrusted with their story, with what they love, with what they're trying to seek, with what they're doing in their life. And I just love that we get to meet these different people from the community, that we all get to be neighbors together in the library. And I think that's ultimately what I love most about the library is that it is for everybody. Everybody does belong in the library. There is something for everybody. There's Sailor Moon books, Sailor Moon movies. There's musical instruments. There's board games. There's video games. There's ebooks. There's audiobooks. There's tool cleaning libraries. There's bakeware collections. There's so many different things. There are databases. There's resources. There's computers, um, printers, scanners. You can scan your documents and send them off to somebody because so many people come in and they're like, I have to fax this, and we're like, do you have an email address? Maybe you can call them, ask if you can scan it and send it that way. And it just all those little things are my favorite part. Honestly, like even talking about the stories, like they're so simple in nature, and that's why I love breaking it down to like the simplest part of someone's story is actually the most impactful, and that's why I always love discovering as a librarian.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love stories. Obviously part of this podcast is about like learning about people and their stories and of course like their love of Sailor Moon, but also just like about them, which is like what this whole part is about, is learning about you. So I can totally relate to that. That is so cool. I love that. Yeah, I actually did an event with the New York Public Library where I got to
Oh,
screen one of the Sailor Moon movies and interview a manga translator for one of the Sailor Moon mangas. And it
yeah,
was really cool. And then I was looking at all the programming they do at that library, and it was like they have a knitting club and like some other stuff. And I was like, this is a video game night. And I was like, this is so cool.
they have everything, huh? It's
Yeah,
like
people need to know this. And of course, books, because books are amazing.
yes.
What would you say is like one misconception about being a librarian?
Just one. You know what? I think we already kind of talked about the main one that I always love to tell people about is that like just like loving books is not a requirement of being a librarian. Like I think that's something that people don't realize. Like that's something like I think every time I've been a part of an interview panel, people are always just like I love books. Like books have always meant so much to me, and that's not that it means nothing. But like I mean, library is a house of books. That's it's what the institution is based on. Um, but I think that's the misconception is that not every library person loves loves books. Most of us are very well read, but some of us are far more well read than others. I always have my childhood books are my favorites. But I say that saying like that's the misconception is that you can have any interest makes you like a powerful, special library worker, library person. There's a lot of people who watch a whole bunch of Netflix, a whole bunch of Hulu, a whole bunch of HBO, and honestly, that a lot of times, like for conversations at the front desk, watching TV shows, watching movies is almost more of an advantage than knowing about a lot of books, just because there's so many people who don't have access to those streaming services because of poverty, because of every other means. That being able to say, hey, this is what I just watched. Maybe you'll like this show. It's such a way to connect, or even like loving art. living tattoos. Like I'm covered in a bunch of tattoos, and just being able to talk about people with what they love. I mean, again, talking about the collections that libraries have, video games, so interest in video games, big deal. Um, Interest in gardening. There's seedling libraries where you can start your own garden, courtesy of the library, and being able to educate the community and educate your library neighbors on those things. It's so special. So I think that's the biggest misconception is like people like, oh, I can never work at the library. I can never even go to the library. Like you don't have to love books to be a library worker. I mean, it is important. I mean, again, there are books there, so an appreciation is always an advantage. But like that, definitely not. It's not like library panels are like, oh, they didn't say I love books. Cross them off the list.
That's really good. I actually didn't know that, and that's really good to know because I think that is what a lot of people think of. And
Hmm.
funny, now that I'm thinking back, like one of the things I used to do a lot in college, before like streaming became big, is I would rent DVDs from the library a lot, and I would come back
Yeah,
with stacks of DVDs, like watch a bunch of movies, and it was really great to be like, oh, this is kind of like Blockbuster, but for free.
exactly, and kind of get into like the what you just said, like, and you said as for one misconception, but like the follow up to that one is just that most people don't know that in the United States, for the most part, most if someone has the title of librarian, they have a master's degree. They have a master's degree in either they have a master's degree in library information science. So we're very well educated, just so that we can have the skill set to develop different knowledge that we can reach as many people as possible. So there's so often times where people come into library like, oh, are you a volunteer? It's so nice of you to dedicate your time to this library, which we do, but it's also like this is a job, this is a career that people have. People work towards becoming a librarian.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was another one I learned a few years ago when I was looking into it. Because again, I just thought like, oh, you start off,
Yeah.
you work there, and then you work your way up. And it's like, no, this is you have to get a master's. Like they don't just
Uh-huh.
shelve books, even though, like you said, shelving books is important because that's how we can find books later on when we're looking for them. But yeah, it's definitely about like setting the programming, even like budgeting. I've heard so
Hmm.
it's a lot. It's a lot. It is a whole job that deserves pay.
Definitely.
And you mentioned a lot about like everyone deserves library joy. And you mentioned library joy a lot. I'm curious, what does
Mm.
library joy mean exactly?
That's such a great question. I think I've often told like recently people have been asking me like that question, and I've tried to like figure out like what I would say. And for me, I love kind of like almost like copying out and just saying it's not for me to define, which is also something I think is very important. Like to me, library joy is that everyone belongs in the library. There is something for everybody. I love asking people if they're ready for joy. Like I often talk about mental health and mental health affirmations. On social media, just because of my struggles and other people's struggles. I love saying, "Are you ready for joy?" Because it acknowledges that being a joyful person doesn't mean you have to be joyful all the time. There are so many times where like people have bad days, and like as a library person, as a person who people see as joyful, it's important for me to acknowledge like I'm not always as joyful as I present. I am in the video just because that's when I'm like, okay, I'm joyful. Let me make this video. Let me reach as many people as possible. But I have so many days where there's not 24 hours of joy. Almost every day is not filled with 24 hours of joy for me, but I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to reach there, and that is to me what library joy is trying to obtain 24 hours of joy. To be like 24/7 365 of library joy would be amazing. That is that is the end goal of life for me. But I think that is my library joy is I take joy in the stories that I share, in books, in movies, in TV shows, and talking about Sailor Moon with you. All those different things. Like that to me is library joy. It's trying to obtain library joy is my library joy. And I always say that library joy is for other people to define for themselves. It's the reason I have not trademarked it. I'm never going to trademark it because it's not mine to define or to have, because I want everybody to be able to have their version of library joy about what reminds them of happiness, of joy, of success. And for me, I think that everybody has that in their local library because it's a place that they can always visit. Yes, there are things going on in the world that are making it hard for people to have access to books, to have access to their libraries, but they deserve that access. They deserve that library joy, that book joy, and that's why I want to hear from so many different people about like what is library joy to you. Are you ready for joy? Because library joy is going to be there for you yesterday, today, tomorrow, 2025, 26, 27. all the way into the 3000s. And I think that that's what brings me the most happiness is just being able to remind people that that's what the library is for them. It's a place where you don't have to pay money to come into the library. It's one of the last places where you don't have to either pay money or have like a reason for being there. You can just go into the library, you can find a book, you can sit down. And honestly, you can just sit down. I think I love when people just sit and almost just like stare around. They're not even people watching. They're just like it's the first time they've had a chance to just sit uh, within their own thoughts, within their own feelings, and that just is such a special feeling to know that people come to the library to do that.
That is so true. Especially I live in Brooklyn and it's even a place where sometimes it's the only place you can get AC. And so even that much, it's just like such a necessary space for people. And so yeah, I think that alone will spark library joy for me if I was looking for some alleviation from the heat. And then so now you are working with PBS, which is super exciting. I'm a PBS kid myself. And I saw you met Arthur, which is super fun. So, can you talk a little bit about like what the work you're doing there? Like what exactly is like their resident librarian? Like just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, the PBS resident librarian is such like an unexpected reaction, unexpected outcome of everything that I've done on social media with libraries. It's never something that I sought out to do. I didn't think it was possible. It was never even my dream. I mean, I'm same as you. I'm a PBS kid. I have Arthur Reed's library card tattooed on me. Again, grew up watching Arthur Reed, reading Rainbow with LeVar Burton, Mister Rogers' Neighborhood. That was television to me. Those were my very first friends, along with book characters. So to now be on PBS's social media platforms, PBS and PBS Kids, seeing my name, hearing my voice, seeing my face next to the logo, it's so very cool. It's not even I always say it's not even a dream come true because I didn't ever think it was possible. I never thought I would talk with my good friend the artwork Arthur Reed. That was so amazing. Definitely, by far my space top eight moments of life. Can't be knocked out of the top 8. I would be utterly shocked if I'd have to talk with DW to ever knock Arthur Reed out of the MySpace top 8. But no, I think so. The work of the resident librarian for PBS and PBS Kids is essentially kind of doing things fairly similarly that I do on my social media, where telling library stories, making book recommendations. But I just get to film the videos, film the stories and the recommendations, and I send them off to PBS, PBS Kids, who are incredible. They're exceptional. They've been so very gracious and patient with me as I'm doing things with my life, and then they just share them to their platforms, and we just get to see library kids, PBS kids, library grown-ups, PBS grown-ups. Just listening to me talk on and on about libraries and literacy, so it's just very cool. It was a limited social media series. I think both of us, myself and PBS Kids, are hoping to keep it going, and we'll just see what we can do to remind kids and encourage them to go to the local library to get their library cards and just flourish as literate human beings.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think as a PBS grown up, I hope it continues because I love that now. I'm gonna start calling myself that. It's also cool that like you grew up being a PBS kid and now like you are kind of get to be that person for kids growing up watching PBS now. So this is really cool. I love like full circle moments. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you know what's funny? People always talk to me about like they're like, oh, like I love that you're what you do for kids. I love how kids react to it, and I always tell them, which I think a lot of people are shocked by, is like the videos that I make, the content I guess you could say that I create, is not actually catered towards kids. It's not like I'm like, oh no, this will never be for kids. I never sought out being on social media thinking that, yep, I'm going to be a kids content creator. What I make is for kids. Primarily, I was hoping that it was going to be for everybody. I mean, I'm a former children's librarian, so I have a certain way of reaching kids in the neighborhood and the community, but also trying to encourage um, teens, grown-ups, the elderly, everybody. So I was never like, oh, the way I'm doing things, this is how I'm going to reach the library kids. I was very much like, oh, this is a story that library grown-ups are gonna see. Like every time someone's like, "Oh, I watch your videos with my son, with my daughter, with my grandkids," I'm always shocked. And I was like, "Oh, like they actually watch it with you? Like they actually like see me and they willingly watch it. You're not just like, this person talks about the library. You have to sit here while he's talking. They're like, no, my kids actually said, oh, look at this person, or they'll send me clips of like their kids watching watching YouTube or watching TikTok or watching Instagram, and they're watching one of the videos or watching the Arthur Reed short. I'm like, that's so cool because that's not at all what I set out to do. Like I'm just like my content is not made for is for kids. It's very much made. The videos, the stories that I share are intended to reach as many people as possible. Um, but to be fair, because I'm trying to include everybody, I definitely am like, okay, I can't say certain words, certain things because library kids are likely going to see it. But it definitely is not like I'm like, okay, I'm talking this way because library kids are going to see it. I think because of my excitement level, like the way that it's very much fast paced. A lot of times because I know that I only have 90 seconds to say my story, to say my speech. Is why I talk so quickly. And I just also just talk quickly. That's the way my brain works. But I think because of that, people are like, oh, this is who he's trying to reach. And also because I have wild hair, I have zany shirts, I have book tattoos of kids' book characters. So people aren't wrong in their thinking. I just think it's very funny that that is people's immediate reactions, immediate thought. It's like, oh, this whole time he's always tried to reach kids ultimately. And I'm always like, yep, I always want to reach them, but it's always been for every encompassing human being who ever may come across it, which the amount of people that I've reached is already has been exceeded by 800,000 to a million. I always thought that I would reach, maybe if I was lucky, I thought I would reach 1,000 people and remind them to get a library card.
I'm so happy that you've been reaching everybody, including me. I think it's also impressive that you are able to get the attention of kids because if they're watching, then you're doing something good because they will not shy away from things they don't like. But but obviously it's very clear that you have reached everybody because inner childs, grown-ups, children, teens, everybody, because yeah, it's just been really fun to watch you and just encouraging really just to see you in your journey and just really appreciate everything that you share.
No,
Um
I appreciate that. I think even just like talking, like going and doing story time, that's when I see it the most. When like library grown-ups are like, I watch you on TikTok, I watch you on Instagram. Like they're the ones who want to take a picture with me. It's very rarely like the kids who want to take a picture, take a selfie with me, but they're very much entranced like with the way that I do story time. But they're just like, yeah, we love books, we love literacy, we love library, which I love because they wear their Paw Patrol shirts, they wear their Miss Rachel backpacks, they'll wear their Sailor Moon shoes, and they're just sitting there, just like, okay, cool. This person talking about libraries. I've probably seen it before in the videos, but we're just ready for the next story. And that's what I love most of all. Is that some people are excited to meet me, which I always appreciate. I'm always going to be baffled by, but I always appreciate. And the other people who are just like, ah, we just want to listen to someone talk about the joy of libraries, the joy of books, the joy of things that interest us about the world, which is essentially literacy. That's what library. That's what books are. Is every encompassing great thing about the world.
yeah, that's so true. And yeah, I love it all. I just love it. And thank you so much for breaking that down for me because it's funny because I'm like I watch your videos and I'm an adult and it resonates with me and I still thought that, and it's like well, it really works for you too, duh. But but I do want to ask you a little bit of fun questions. And yay, cats. I love cats. So I need to know the hair care routine because your hair always looks moisturized and looks like thriving. So like anything you could share.
I appreciate that. You know what? I always dread that question, not because it's a bad question, but just because I do so little. There'll be kids, there'll be teens, adults who ask me that question. I'm like, most of the time, I just wake up and I push it up. I wear a bonnet at night. So I think that's something that's something I had to learn. I had to learn going up because for the longest time as a kid, as a teen, I had a buzz cut. So my afro is something where I had it as a baby. I had like a afro perm as a baby and a toddler, and then probably from the age of like maybe 6 or 7 to honestly to probably like 20 to 22, I had a buzz cut, very short hair, and then I just started growing it out, and it's become what it was. I think the first time I started growing it out was to become Gerald from Hey Arnold, which I'm sure you're gonna ask about other fandoms besides Sailor Moon in the later on in the conversation, that was always one of mine. So I grew my hair out. It used to be very much like that, staying as high as possible is why I first started growing it out. And then it's become what it is. So honestly, a lot of it really is just wearing a bonnet at night, just trying to keep it safe, keep it as a, yeah, give it the best chance to grow in its most flourishing and blooming self. And I go to my loctician. I think they prefer to be called, get my hair braided every now and again just for that protective hairstyle. And I've gotten much better about like actually having just like an actual wash day during the week as opposed to washing it every single day. Um, Experimenting with different shampoos. Um, and conditioners. I haven't found one yet that I'm committed to, but just experimenting, seeing what's best for my particular hair, and then letting it do its own thing, and then just yeah, wearing hair ties, wearing bonnets, and then also but just also being able to, which is the cool thing about being a public library worker, is being able to just wear your natural hair, to have it just have it out and about, and not having to wear a hat, not having to cut my hair and that kind of thing. So yeah, just doing the best I can. And honestly, like to answer your question, like that's what I do, and I'm honestly still learning the best ways to take care of it. So I appreciate that you think um, it is doing a good job most of the time.
It is, yeah. That's why I ask, because I'm like, I need tips. I usually just wear mine in protective styles because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But but yeah, definitely on that journey. Maybe you can find we use a Beyonce Sacred conditioner next because I hear that works pretty good.
Hey, we'll give it a shot, or give it some Alicia Keys treatment, or
Yeah, I'll try. It never hurt. But yeah, I did want to ask that too, though, because you mentioned Gerald, Hey Arnold. I love Hey
Mhm.
Arnold. I watch it like every day before school. So yeah, what else do you stand? What other shows, TVs, books? It could be even be a thing. Like I will often say I love like Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits. Like like whatever you stand.
You know what, I love the last thing you said, just because yesterday I was helping my brother move some of his stuff, and we stopped by A&W, and we had some of the cheese curds. I've only had the cheese curds from A&W a couple of times. I'm a newfound stan of A&W cheese curds, or just cheese curds in general. I don't think you can see all the details of my shirt, but I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt saying it's a trap. So I've always been a Star Wars person. As much as I love LeVar Burton, I'm very much Star Wars over Star Trek. To be fair, I've never really seen Star Trek to say that, but I'm just always it's because I saw Star Wars first. I've always loved Star Wars. I always loved Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher. I loved Darth Vader. I think Darth Vader is one of the greatest film characters of all time. I'm one of those people who kind of, I don't side with the villain, but I'm always like, what's their story? Like what are they thinking in this? I love Chronicles. I love Chronicles of Narnia. I think that's honestly a series of books and films that, like that a lot of Sailor Moon fans would also relate to, just because of the various chaos and storylines and things that happen in the fight to obtain the greater good that happens in the Chronicles of Narnia. Um, what else? For TV shows, I mean, I love the mockumentaries. I love The Office. I love Parks and Rec. Um, I recently went to Texas to talk about libraries and library joy. I love King of the Hill. I'm a King of the Hill stan. Hank Hill and Dale Gribble. I've seen I've seen King of the Hill close to 13 times from beginning to end. Um,
Oh.
at this point, yes, a lot of things. Um, and then I think for books, I'm a big Lewis Sacker stan. Holes, Sideways Story from Wayside School. Um, Authors, I'm a bigger fan of a stan of authors than I am book series. So Jason Reynolds' work, Kelly Yang's work, Rand Telgemeier's work, Jerry Craft, Jerry Pinkney's illustrations. And I'm also a big sports fan. So I love I love the Lakers. I love the Las Vegas Raiders, from formerly the Oakland Raiders, San Francisco Giants. I love the WNBA, so I love Asia Wilson. I love Sabrina Ionescu, Candace Parker. All sorts of. I'm so proud of everything. I'm so glad that we're in a point of life where women's basketball, women's sports are getting acknowledged and people are watching. I grew up on it because my mom played basketball all her life. She coaches a basketball team at the high school that she teaches at. Um, so many different fandoms. I mean, I have Richard Scarry tattoos tattooed on me. I have Lily Worm and the Apple Car. I have the Pickle Car tattooed on me. Um, I love Studio Ghibli. I have My Neighbor Totoro tattooed on me. I have No Face from Spirited Away. Uh, so many fandoms. I love fandoms. I love learning about new fandoms. That's a lot of the reason I was so excited to talk with you to talk about this conversation. Is for like as much as like I have so many friends and people in my life who love Sailor Moon. I'm always trying to learn more to get more out of it. So I just love talking about people's interests such as this. So it just I think that's why I love people who love fandoms, who love lore because it just means so much to them, and like you could just see people's faces light up when they're talking about like what they love. Like that's how I am about library. That's how you are about Sailor Moon. I like one of my very best friends loves Sailor Moon probably as much as you do, and she'll light up when she talks about Sailor Moon too. Um, yeah, it's so important for me to talk with people about what they love because you can just see the excitement all over their face. Even my cat is trying to talk about her interest right now. I never understand her, so she probably just is like food and snacks. Those are my
Definitely
interests.
food. Food and pets. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I love fandoms as well, obviously, as you can tell. And yeah, I also love villain lore too and backstory. So when you mentioned that Darth Vader thing, I was like, yes. Like every time there's a villain, I'm like, yeah, but what happened? Like what tell me your background. Tell me like what's in the back of your head right now? Like what's going on? Like I love a good backstory. I love backstories.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna keep on rewatching Sailor Moon, just like as much as that we talked about. Like I love, it's like Sailor Moon is like the character. I'm gonna delve deeper into every character's arc, every character's story. So I'm probably gonna spend the next decade of my life watching Sailor Moon again, just like to tackle the different parts. And be like, oh, why are they this way? Why are they that way? And let's say even for your thoughts on like Darth Vader. Like I even recently was like Darth Vader is essentially a robot. Like you rewatch like the series, and of course it's the person who plays Darth Vader is only Hayden Christensen is only so tall. So you watch it, you see Darth Vader, and you're like, but Darth Vader's like 7 feet tall, and so they were just like, you know what? He got burnt. Some things happened. He was a little bit too tall for so much, or too short for so much power. We're gonna make him a robot. We're gonna make him some really tall legs, and just like I want to know why. I want to know the person who built Darth Vader. Like, were they told to make him that tall? Or were they just like, oh, I'm making an impressive villain? They have to have tall legs. Like, I need to know the answer to these questions.
I love that. I love like thinking of like side stories and stuff like that. Like who's like the person like one like who built him like for the movie, but also who like the person had to like put together like Anakin. Because that's what I always think about with Star Wars as well. Like who's printing like those big banners? Like whenever they do like who's like where's the printing office? Like is there a library in the Star Wars universe? Like I need to know these things. Like give me a side story on the library and on the Empire or something. I don't know.
I love that, like librarian Jedi or librarian Sith. They
Yeah,
had to like someone has to track all this history and all of Yoda's powerful thoughts and various quotes and backwards speech.
exactly. Somebody has to do it. And I hope I need that story to be told. But I love thinking of those things as well. So that's really fun. Um, well, thank you for sharing all the things that you stand. I have to definitely check out those cheese curds as well because I've never had it. So I will try it next time I am in the vicinity of where they sell those. And then what is some advice you have for someone who wants to become a librarian or someone who is a librarian and maybe looking for some advice?
My advice for people who want to become a librarian or library worker or get into the library field to join us in library land is to volunteer for your local library. Well, to first go to your library, get a library card, see what it's all about as a library person, as a library user, as a library. as a library neighbor. But then just start volunteering, start look for entry level jobs. I always tell people who want to get into it, that's the best possible way. Because just being a librarian, it's not what people think it is. A lot of people think that we just sit there and that we read all day, and there's so much more. There's almost never reading other than emails throughout the workday. Um, so I think just if you figure out what it is for yourself, you're like, okay, this is something I want to do. Like it's a long time. A lot of people don't realize that for most places, at least in the United States, working for the library means you're some form of a government worker, be it county, be it state, be a nation government worker. That's what you're doing. So there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of red tape, but there's so much happiness, there's so much joy in working for the library, but you wear so many hats that there are still struggles, there are still hassles that you have to figure out for yourself, which is why, again, I tell people volunteer, get that entry level job, have conversations with library staff, make sure it's something that you want to do, because as many of us know, pursuing education, pursuing schooling in this world is very difficult. It is very daunting. It is a true commitment. So I definitely don't think becoming a librarian, a library worker is a waste of time. But just make sure it's something that you're ready for before you take that leap. Because there's enough struggle, there's enough discouragement in the world that I wouldn't want people to be discouraged as a result of a failed library mission. And I think most people, once they volunteer, once they get that entry level job, they'll love it as much as the rest of us do, and they'll help us make it a better place. I mean, there's so many things going on with banned books in the world. With now, people are making it possible to prosecute, to imprison library people for providing access to books for featuring people of color, featuring the LGBTQI plus community, just because so many people are worried. They think that we're up to some sort of agenda, that we're up to no good, and we're just trying to share people's stories. We're just trying to remind them that they have a place in the world, um, in literature. I mean, I think our conversation, I think Sailor Moon is a perfect example. There's Sailor Moon books. There's obviously a Sailor Moon TV show, movies. But I often think that like Sailor Moon, there's so much representation, be it language, be it culture, be it race, be it whatever. So many different options, so many different elements that Sailor Moon encompasses. And like that's also what the library is. It's all those things. It's races, it's backgrounds, it's culture, it's knowledge, it's history, um, and that's all that we're trying to go about. So that is a very TED Talky way to answer your question of like, what do you say? What's your advice to people who want to um, become a library worker or keep on pursuing their education, their career towards librarianship? Is just to be ready for all those things, and just to keep on having conversations, and just figure out what you want to do. I mean, there's so many different trajectories. You could be a school librarian, which we need more of. I think that's my next mission campaign is there needs to be a school librarian in every school library. There's so many that don't have them. There's academic college libraries. There's public libraries. There's records management, where people who create all this data, all this information, all this knowledge that we get to take advantage of. So yeah, reach out to your local library, have those conversations with your local library staff, let them know you're interested. I guarantee you they're going to light up and talk your ear off about what it takes, and just acknowledge it. Like, yeah, you love books, you love Chronicles of Narnia, you love reading about Studio Ghibli, you love Star Wars films, you love rewatching Parks and Rec and The Office over and over again. Um, you could talk about Sailor Moon episode after episode after episode after episode. All those things will mean so much as you pursue your library career.
Yeah, that is great advice. One, you reminded me too. I've never seen Chronicles of Narnia or read it, so I need to do that so I can get in on that because I've been wanting to for a while. So you're reminding me of that. And I feel like that's just really good advice because I think so many people like, oh, let me just go get my degree. And it's like, no, volunteer first, see if you like it, see how it is. And, just being real about the landscape right now with banned books. And it's so true because it's funny, I don't think of Sailor Moon in that conversation, but really when you think of it, it's a Japanese book and it's what led me to like being more interested in Japanese culture and where I actually traveled to Japan in 2017. So it's interesting that like it's how powerful like fandoms can be. And um yeah, it's just something I'm like fan books are so silly. It's just
They
so
silly is true. It is the perfect word to describe it. Like they're, I mean, they're also they're evil, they're awful, but silly is like the perfect word because that just
absolutely.
like why are you doing it? Like you can have this conversation with you and your children if you're the caretaker, you and whoever you're the caretaker for, just to say like this is where we stand. Maybe you're not ready for it, and that's fine. That's my stance. Is like yes, the grown-ups and the kids should have be able to have that conversation. I think if kids are ready for it, if there's access, let them read it. Um, but like that's a problem when you ban a book, when you challenge a book, is you're making it so that other grown-ups and kids can't have that conversation. You're saying, nope, we know more than them. We're taking that away from them, and that is just silly because like that's we need this access. That's why kids oftentimes they don't need all these things that the grown-ups are scared that they're going to see in books. They don't even recognize it. They don't. It's not because they're dumb or because they're ignorant, but just because they're focusing on the parts that like bring them joy of literature. They're just like, I just want to read the story. I want to read about my friends. So often I was when I was a children's librarian, I would go to school. I would bring a suitcase full of books, books about people of color, books about LGBTQI plus. And so many kids would just like see a person on the book cover that looked like their friend, black kid, Asian kid, Mexican kid, and they're just like, ah, this looks like my friend. I want to read all about this just because they think it's a story. It's a story that looks like my friend about the person I want to be friends with. I'm going to read this book because I think it's going to make me closer to them. And sometimes that kid, that black kid, that Muslim kid, that LGBTQI plus kid is just like, it's not my story. You can read that all you want. You're not gonna learn anything about me in that story. But just like that's like that's the fun part. That's like the joy of literature. Like that's what they think. That's why people devour this information is just to either learn more or just have fun with a story. And that's what books are for. Um, and we can always learn so much. I mean, I think that's the fun thing about literature, about books. It's just it's a lifelong journey. Like I'm so good. I'm so jealous that you got to go to Japan, experience that culture. It's on my bucket list to do that. Just experience it for myself. Even for me, just like even not taking it from a going to a different country aspect. Just like I don't read manga too much, which is what the Sailor Moon books are. Is manga just because for the Japanese culture, it makes sense for them to be able to go, yes, for them to be like the way the manga is set up. That's how Japanese culture. That's how they read. But for me, person who grew up in California, in America, to me, my brain considers that to be reading backwards. And I've had the hardest time being able to do that. I've tried to read Naruto, One Piece, Sailor Moon countless times. It's not that the stories aren't good. It's just that my brain is literally like as I'm reading it, just like going the wrong way. We're not even going to acknowledge or recognize what we just read. So that's something that as I'm now 34 years old, have spent probably a true decade actively trying to read more and more manga and just trying to trick my brain to say it's okay. It's a new experience. We can do this. And that's what books, that's what library, that's what literacy, that's what literature, that's what Sailor Moon, that's what manga, that's what audiobooks, that's what ebooks do for us. They're a new adventure, a new discovery that we all should be pursuing.
I completely agree. Yeah, they're definitely just all different journeys that we can hop into and learn more about. And I get that every time I read manga, I have to like my brain has to be like, okay, this way. And I'm like, wait, how do I read the uh different panels? And I have to like, okay, sometimes I read it in the wrong way and I'm like, wait, no, I think this was before that because this doesn't make sense if he's saying this. And so I get it. It's an adjustment for sure. And you mentioned mockumentaries before too, and mockumentaries, yeah. I was like, that sounds wrong, but I was gonna mention Abbott Elementary because I don't know if you had a chance to watch it yet, but they also did a whole thing on school librarians recently, and so I thought you might appreciate that.
I love Abbott Elementary. Abbott Elementary. I love Quinta Brunson since she was on BuzzFeed,
Yeah,
doing all those things. So I love. I haven't watched the most recent season. I'm just waiting for a chance to be able to sit down and watch every single episode. But I've heard great things about the school librarian, um, and I can't wait to see it and see the way that she wrote that she wrote that character
yeah.
into that just hilarious and been very real show. So I'm excited. I'm so proud of what Quinta Brunson has done with her life and what she does for teachers and now for librarian. So the world is better with Quinta Brunson and the Abbott Elementary um, cast and crew working to acknowledge and encourage teachers, librarians, students, library users, and just the general communities of the world. So yes, so it is on my list. I can't wait to see exactly like how they portrayed the school librarian to be.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And Quincy is a Sailor Moon fan, so that always makes me happy too. And then close to lastly, just like so at the end of every Sailor Moon episode in the original like English version, she would end with like a PSA and she'd be like, Sailor Moon says. So what would your Sailor Moon says phrase be? So your PSA mantra. So Sailor Michael says.
That is a good that's a great question. I love that. I think for me, it would be, say that Michael says, "You belong in the library, you belong in the world. Please keep going. Take it one day at a time. Find your favorite book, find your favorite cat, find your favorite dinosaur, find your reason, find what brings you joy, whenever you're ready for joy, yesterday, today, or tomorrow. And just please keep on going. Please stay one more day. And say that Michael is so happy that you're here in this world."
And Michael, I'm so happy you're here in this world as well. Um, and what is next for you? Oh, and where can people find you?
What's next for me is I find myself still just visiting library to library. Again, there's so much going on in library land, library world, where libraries need support. We need to save our libraries for the better. So I think for me, I'm gonna start finding a way to tell other library people's story. I tell a story to library kids and library grown-ups all the time, and I'm going to keep on doing that, library visit after library visit. But I also want to start acknowledging and emphasizing my fellow library workers, fellow librarians, and show the world how amazing and extraordinary they are. They're the people who convinced me to become a librarian, a library person, and they're also the people who have consistently saved my life and given me a reason to keep on going. All my library friends. So just want to highlight that I'm not the only one who has these library stories. I'm a narrator of library joy, of book joy, of library stories, but as are they. They're equally amazing. They deserve so much library love and library support and encouragement. So that's the next for me is finding them, convincing them to share their story with me, so I can share it with others. And I can be found. I'm chronically online, so I am all over social media. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it,
Flickr.
Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Yeah, I'm just online, loving people's content, sharing too many stories, just talking about library joy and book joy all over the internet.
It's never too much. We appreciate it every time. But as my friend Jackie said, I feel like you are our librarian guardian of love and justice, as Sailor Moon was. And I so appreciate you coming on the show and talking with me about Sailor Moon and library joy and Darth Vader's backstory. So thank you so much for coming on the show. That's it.
Thank you so much. No, I appreciate you having me. Appreciate this conversation. I'm going to keep on watching Sailor Moon. I look forward to the next upcoming Sailor Moon conversation with you.
Same, yeah. And then I'm Victoria, host of the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. You can find me at Miss Old School on Twitter and Instagram, and Moonies Club for the podcast on Twitter, Moonies_club on Instagram, and we have merch at mooniesclub.com if you want to check that out as well. And thanks. Bye, Moonies.